Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 432 at scavengerlife.com.
So this weekend we have been enjoying our small town life.
Yeah.
That we, I think, have earned, you know? Like we've talked about it before, we moved from, a big urban area, San Francisco, to this little tiny town in Virginia.
Yeah.
Of 5,000 people. And we called it, at the time we didn't think of it that way, but I guess there's a term for geographic arbitrage.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right? They have a name for everything.
Great.
That's one way to, cut down on costs is just to move somewhere cheaper.
Look, that was the whole point. It was the whole point.
Yep.
We were like, we don't want to pay what it costs to live in San Francisco.
And there are small towns all throughout America where they're just hungry for people to come and move there. Cheap prices for houses. Life is cheap.
Yep.
The communities want new people, all those things. And so we've been here for
10 years? 11 years?
Yeah, 11 years.
Oh my God.
So yesterday we were part of the Farmers Association. We're not farmers, but
anyone can join.
But we're members to support them. And we had our county's heritage festival where they bring out all the old ways of doing things, and they have little demos, and all the kids come and get to see how milk is made and how they cut wood with big saws.
Yeah.
We were in a little barn area with kids games, pumpkin bowling.
Oh, it's so cute. Ring toss.
Yep.
It was so cute.
But it was fun though. We knew everybody. They knew us,
Yeah.
It was fun. And then we went to a new wine bar that opened on our downtown that are run by some friends of ours.
New as in it's been open for a year.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn new.
I think in a small town, if it's under a year old, it's still new. But it's cool. It's kind of one of the new businesses that is fresh, where you walk in there and it feels wow, this is a fresh place.
It's just run by young people.
Yeah.
It's got a great atmosphere. They redid the space. They don't own the space, but they redid the space. And we knew a bunch of people that were there on a Saturday night,
And we went on it was about a mile and a half a walk along this creek that goes through our town, and there's
a walking trail.
They call it the Greenway, and we just went and took a walk, and it was real nice.
It was just funny because it was we did all this stuff, and we're at this heritage festival, and we're talking to all our people who are on local boards with us, checking in and, talking about local stuff that's happening in the county. And then we go to the wine bar and we see all these people, and then we take a walk. It's just so nice.
Yeah.
It's hey, this is our town.
Sun was coming down, and, and there's mountains because we're in a valley. So there's mountains on both sides of our,
the sun setting.
Yeah.
It's
and it's funny. And then when we're going back to our car to drive home, we actually walked by a young couple. And I just said hi to them.
We just waved at them hi.
I didn't know who they were. And it turned out they messaged us, and they were the people staying in our apartment on our
the Airbnb.
Yeah.
They were we think we just passed you on the sidewalk. And it was so funny because we're yep, that was us.
That's us. So yeah, it was just, it was just one of those days where I think it's important for us to recognize that, we've built a life here, and, that was a kind of day where we're enjoying the fruits of our,
of our community,
of our choices of being here,
We went to, this happened a couple of weekends ago too. We went to this little dinner to benefit, I forget what it was. Oh, the library. And it's they're having this little dinner. And we knew a bunch of people there too. And it was just, our town and our county, throughout the whole county is so small, but it was just funny because we walked in and a bunch of our neighbors were there, and they're come sit with us. And it was oh yeah, we know people here.
And look, that can happen in, I'm sure, urban areas as well, where parts in a neighborhood or something, but it's not the kind of thing we experienced.
Not really.
When we lived in New York.
a little bit with, we had a community of people, but, not just walking down the street being knowing people.
It was fun.
It's nice. It's a nice feeling too. Yeah. And also because we're trying to invest in the community. People recognize our, people are asking us about our buildings and stuff, and you're oh yeah.
Well, when we talk about eBay, we've said it before. We take our eBay profits and we invest it in other things. So for us, it's like a rentals, and that with the amount of money we make, it's not like giant amounts of money, but in a small town, you can actually affect change with not a lot bit of money. And towns should be very happy. Like our town, I think they like us because we're trying to do something good, and they work with us, and it's fun to talk to them and work with them, and that feels good too, because you're investing in something that I think is appreciated.
Right. Like people see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of scavengers throughout America in going to small towns, scavenging, selling, and then making their communities better.
I love that idea.
That's a vision for you.
That's audience.
Yeah. So last week we kind of did a longer podcast, or I don't know if it was too long, but it was like kind of a summary of kind of all the ideas us and the community have come up with over the past decade.
Let's emphasize that. It's not just us.
Yeah. And so someone Simplicico, he actually had another one to add, and he said, be content with good enough when it comes to a listing quality, photo quality, customer service. And it's important to take good photos, but going from good to great doesn't move the needle that much. If it takes you a lot more time, it's not worth it.
Yes.
Totally true.
Agreed. Look, at first, when we were taking photos, we were using the lowest iPhone. It was the first iPhone, and like a little Zacti camera.
Because it was back in 2008.
That's like literally all we had. So you're like, okay. But then we got a nicer camera, and we were using a DSLR with like a gorgeous lens, because that's what we use that for video. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of like, people were like, just take photos on the newest iPhone.
Like it's now like iPhone 6, and the iPhone 6s are great. Like these and it's true. And
look, we take photos of everything on the floor or a little bench thing.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Or the table.
It's on some nice wood.
Nice wood. It's not like my washing machine.
It's kind of a look now that I think is permeating eBay, and I think it's a good look. Items on a nice blonde wood, and it looks good.
Well, what's so funny is I have a bunch of searches open, and I'll searches, like email searches that they send me every day, and I'll see stuff and I'll be like, is that my listing? Not that people are copying me, but that's a look on a wooden, background, and you're like, oh, that's somebody else. But, so I totally agree with that. We at first were like modeling all our clothes and like whatever. No, clothes get taken picture on the floor.
Actually wore them. Yeah.
Right. And now I'm like, man, I don't have time. But that was our only job. That was before we had Airbnbs.
Right.
That was just part of the job.
eBay had been our only job.
And we had some video jobs, but they were few and far between.
And, I think about it too, when we first were taking pictures with that phone, and we were in like a dark room with we had fluorescent light, and we were doing the best we could, and we thought it was good. And I look back at those pictures now, and they're horrible. Well,
they're horrible because honestly, the technology was not great with the cameras.
But my whole point in this is we did the best we could, but the thing is we did it, and we were just going for it.
And we still made money.
And not holding back, and we still sold stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So it was, so anyway, I think that's a great thing to, be content with good enough,
Yep.
And be honest though, if you feel like you're being lazy, you gotta be honest. Like if you're taking pictures and it's on a dirty floor with a bunch of junk on it, and it's kind of dark, you're being lazy.
Right. Right. I mean, you can upgrade. I mean, you can say, okay, I do want better lighting, or I do want better background, whatever, but don't let that stop you.
Right. Some people on our forum are really into it. They actually do have those really nice DSLR cameras, and they have it on a mount, and they have a photo, a photo table,
like a light booth,
and it's mounted with lights.
But they keep it up all the time, so it's good to go.
So I guess if you're willing to go to that length, as long as you're still taking photos and a listing. I think the point of good enough is not getting stuck and paralyzed. Like, oh, I can't do this because it's not good enough. So.
Right. And I've heard people get stuck with that where they're like, well, I don't have a light booth and I can't take photos during natural light hours and I'm in a basement. Just do it. Like, just get started.
So we had kind of mentioned just in passing a week ago that we were starting to teach someone to ship for us.
Yes.
And it's actually a woman that has worked for us before, and then she got a full-time job.
But she still works for us.
And now we're trying to like bring her back. Yeah. So we were asked on the forum to kind of talk about this process. Let me start. I'll say some things, and then it's all you. So she works full time. We've convinced her to come, I think, 3 days a week.
Yes.
2 hours a day in the afternoon. So she'll work a full day at her job and then come and work for us for 2 hours. So she'll work for us 6 hours a week.
Now she ends her work at like 3:30.
Right.
So it's not like it's super late.
So what we've done is we change our handling time to 2-day handling time so we can ship Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right.
And so right now we're teaching her how to like pull items from our inventory, teaching her how to pack all the different wacky, weird items we have, print the labels, and then, put them out for our mail person.
Yep.
So Ryan.
Yes.
What is this process like for you?
Okay. So what it's like for me is I have to be with her every step of the way. So it's not like I'm like, with listing, the girl who helps me with listing, there are weeks where I don't even see her because I'm so busy.
And she's trained.
So she's fully trained. She's good to go. This is the training process, right? So I am showing her our inventory saying, this is where this is. This is where this is. Oh, look, this is a mess.
Right.
Like it's crazy having someone else see it outside of just you and me.
Right. Because we have a crazy inventory where things are like in boxes, but not really labeled. How is she experiencing that? How does she react to like that?
No, I mean, and I will say that there is a bunch of our inventory that sells frequently that does have lot numbers, like I guess in quotes, SKU numbers, where you're like, these are here. It's this number through this number. It's in these bags. And they're numbered, so you can find them.
Certain categories.
Yeah, certain categories of things. But there are a lot of things, like we had this little wood sculpture that was actually kind of delicate. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is in the wood bin. There are 2 wood bins. However, it should have been on the shelf because it's delicate, but it's not because it's so old. It was before we even had shelves. So it's in the bin, and we found it in the bin, and it was broken and I had to fix it. So it's like, it's things like that where you're like,
and when we say if it's on the shelf, it means like we have maybe a 25-foot long wall with like shelves,
delicate stuff.
And it could be up there. There's no rhyme or reason
she looks like, honestly, when we walked in there, she was like, how am I ever, and I'm like, look, you just look, you're like, where is it? Here it is,
And so,
it's a little chaotic.
Someone on the forum was asking, well, before we start teaching her how to ship, we should just have her redo our inventory. Yeah. And hey, what do you think about that?
I agree with that, but I think here's what I'm planning on doing because of the practicality of it. I need her to help me ship. Right. Inventory is secondary. Right. I can help her pull stuff. Right. And what I can do is there are going to be days where there's 2 things to pack. Since it's 2-day handling, it's been like 15 to 20 things to pack. So it's been a lot. It has taken us 2 hours with us pulling stuff and me explaining, this is a such and such. Right. This is how I would ship it. But if there are slow days, I'm going to have her reorganize things so that she sees the inventory and that it makes sense for her to pull it. Right. You know what I mean?
I think also, because she's just given us a couple hours, like 6 hours a week after a full-time job, I'm afraid to like dump a gigantic project of like doing our whole inventory. And also we're still not sure. She's still not sure if she's wanting to take this on like on a regular basis.
Right.
We're still kind of like, do you want to do this?
However, I will say this, we added it up. If it's 2 hours, 3 days a week for a month. I mean, she's getting paid pretty well. So that could be, a good chunk of change for her to like, put in a savings account, or if she buys a house, pays a mortgage.
Right. That was our pitch to her. She's, was she 30?
30.
Yeah. So she's thinking about buying a house. And so, houses around here, 150,000.
Yeah.
And we're like, we could pay you enough where the money that you make with us would pay a mortgage.
And that's just
30-year mortgage.
A couple hours.
And so I think that's a big pitch for her.
Yeah. So, it helps me immensely. So, okay, training is a pain in the butt because I am like, for 2 hours, I'm basically working with her those times. I have to be at home. There was one day on Friday where we were out doing errands in the next big city, and I was like, we need to get home by X time because I need to be there. But what I love is, I wake up Monday morning and I'm like, well, stuff doesn't have to go out till tomorrow. So I don't have to do anything till she comes at, 3:30. So that freed up my entire morning because it really does take 2 hours sometimes.
And I think another challenge we have is because we are willing to sell anything. It's not like she just has a stack of men's shirts that she's like just
putting in polymailers. Boom. Sometimes it's like that.
Here's like a golf bag. Here's like a wooden sculpture. Here's like a stack of plates. And here's a shirt,
Right.
And then here's something else,
Yeah. So yeah, that's part of the training where I'm like, we pull everything, we bring it up to the office, we take it out of we have these big IKEA bags. We take it out of the bags, and she did this on her own on Friday before I even touched anything. She's like, okay, it looks like those are all poly mailer things. So I'm going to stick those on this side of the office. These are more delicate. And so we would go one by one. Okay, that's a such and such. This is how I would pack that. And she would like grab some of the materials and put it there. So she remembered, okay, this is a such and such. This is how I would do it. We can do this one together because it's a weird thing. But in general, it was like a big piece of luggage. Okay, I'm going to grab a super thick trash bag that we have for the rentals, and we're going to tape it up like crazy, blah, blah, blah. She's never seen that before. She has no idea. Are we building a box for this thing, or what are we doing, So, yeah, it's just... And she said, too, she's like, I just need to see this a bunch of times. And I'll get to know,
So tomorrow will be your third time, I think, shipping.
Third or fourth, yeah.
How many times do you think it'll take before you could just like let her go?
I have no idea.
You'll just kind of see.
I have no idea. Especially pulling inventory. Now, what I have been doing is when stuff sells, even just for my own practice, I'll go into the sold page and I'll do a custom note where I think it is. I think this is in the wood bin. I think this is in bin 005, blah, blah, blah. This is the lot number. This is in books. This is in da-da-da. Just because it helps me to do that. There are times where I'm like, I have no idea where this thing is. It's on the shelf somewhere. And, that's good practice where you're like, how am I going to explain if we're away? Because we're going away for 3 or 4 nights at the end of the month. And I think I'm going to push this is what I think I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put a long handling time.
Right.
But I'm also going to see if she can come on like 1 or 2 of those days and pull stuff.
Right. So it's like
it doesn't matter because the handling time is long.
Try and find stuff.
Pull what you think you can on those days.
Yep.
And it'll be great for us.
And then, have it be like by herself.
Right. She's here by herself.
So that's in like 2 weeks. So do like another 5 or 6 times with her. And then,
so I'm, the handling time will be, X amount of days. So it won't matter. It doesn't have to go out, but let's give it a try.
Yep.
You understand, do you?
I do understand.
Great.
Because I heard you. When you teach her eBay, the shipping.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
And what does she think of experiencing that?
I mean, basically, I'm like, what did they choose as an option? So what's the cheapest option within that? Did they choose first class? Okay. Can it go first class? Great. It should. Sometimes it doesn't. If it's bigger and bulkier, can it go priority mail for the same price if they chose parcel? Can it go FedEx Smart Post? Yeah. It's like, it's when, people are going to be like, go on pirate ship. I'm going to sign up for pirate ship, but right now with training someone, I'm like, USPS all the way. I did some Smart Post ones, the other day, but.
I mean, if you were to just ship the way eBay tells, if she shipped just the way it told her to.
Yeah.
Could she do that, or would we lose?
You'd lose money because there's some things where you're like, okay, they paid for parcel, but it's actually a couple ounces cheaper. Do first class.
Gotcha.
It'll actually get there faster, depending on where you are.
Yep.
But she knows that. I'm like, weigh it.
Right.
Is it a pound or under? Okay, great. That's first class.
Yeah.
Unless they paid for priority. Then you're like, okay, they paid for priority. They want it faster. Can it fit in a flat rate envelope?
Right.
Does it look like it can? This is how you fold jeans to fit in a flat rate envelope. And it's $6.75,
And global shipping, I guess that's pretty easy because it just goes
going to
Kentucky.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like it's going to Kentucky.
But every so often we do have to ship something direct, right?
There was something where I had to ship to South America, but the problem with that was the address was being weird, where they're like, "This is too long," and that was on our first day, and I was like, let's just put that aside.
Right.
Like, that's so rare. It almost never happens.
Right.
But so
how often do we actually ship something to someone overseas directly?
Like 2 times in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Like
so
that's
rare.
how rare.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty rare.
Right.
And one of those was someone requested it, someone in Moscow. They wanted some kind of little tiny thing, and they were like, "Can you please send it first class, like the cheapest?" And he just would not leave me alone about it, and I was like, "Fine." And you know what? It got delivered to Moscow, and it was full tracking.
Wow.
It said delivered. So I was like, "Okay, I'm okay."
Gotcha.
So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited that that's happening.
I am too. It helps me a lot. I mean, training is a pain because it takes up a lot of my time, but the fact that I don't have to ship every morning by 9 a.m., I just look at the ship by date. The thing about eBay now on the seller hub page of stuff that needs to be shipped, I don't know if they always did this, but I don't think they did. It'll be like ship by October 15th. At 9 p.m., but you're like, okay, so that morning, 9 p.m. PST or whatever. So I don't know how long eBay has been showing that information, but I've never seen it before. But it helps me a lot because I'm like, oh, okay, so she's coming on this day. It can ship the next day. I'll just leave it for her to do when we're together because it's more experience for her to look at where stuff is and how to ship it. So that's great.
I mean, so the questions we're getting on the forum about this, I'm assuming is kind of like, how do you do it? Which we've just explained.
Right.
I think kind of an overall thing is like, if you don't know how to ship, you're not going to just hire someone to do it for you.
You need to learn how.
Like, I think this idea that I see some people, and I'm not talking about the people that were asking specifically about this, but I know in the past we've had people say like, oh, I can find stuff all the time. I'll just hire some people to take all my photos
and ship stuff
for me. And it's like, I can't imagine that happening if you're not actually working side by side and showing them how to do it. Like,
it's just like when you train someone for doing listing. I mean, there are even times where like this person who's helping me ship, she will list for us when we're away. I'll have like a pile of stuff for her to do because she does laundry. So I want her to do eBay stuff when she's waiting for laundry.
Or from our rentals.
Yeah,
it's
from our rentals. No, not our personal. That doesn't make any sense. No, from the rentals. But so there are times where she's had years of experience, but I'll still like recalibrate her where I'm like, okay, this is how I want the titles for these things. Make sure you send them this way on the listing. Make sure the photos do this is like she's been working for me for years and I'm still like, you still want to like recalibrate people back to what you need.
Right. And we try and pay her and everyone that it works for us enough where they want to work because it's good money for where we are versus paying them as little as we can
and
because we want to make all the money
and have them blow us off
and then have them like wake up in the morning and be like, do I really feel like want to do that?
It's like, I want the money to be good enough that they're like, oh, if I work this week, it's going to be a good amount at the end of the month, you know?
Cool.
So I'm enjoying it. I think
you do a very good job training.
I try not to overwhelm her because there is a lot where you're like, oh, here are all the men's pants, but it's not in this section because it was accidentally put in women's pants. She's like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, sorry.
Yeah. I know. The inventory thing, and then we'll go to our numbers. The inventory thing is something we really do need to work on.
Do.
I mean, it's 10 years of
just us.
Of just, 8,000 items that have built up. We can always find everything. I've said it before. We have not been able to find things, I think, a handful of times. And
a double handful.
Like under 10 times and we've sold
tens of thousands of items.
So it does work for us.
Yeah.
But it could be more efficient in a way to teach people. It's just pretty daunting when I think about it because again, it's not like we just have clothes like some people have where you could organize clothes in a SKU system. It's like we have tiny pieces of jewelry. We have books. We have like large lamps. I mean, it's just, not everything can go in a box. So we would have to really work it out and we have artwork. So like this stuff will have a certain SKU system. The art will have a certain SKU system. Little tiny things will have SKU system.
Right.
Big giant things, carpets and rugs will have a different SKU system. It's just, it's daunting, It
is daunting.
But I think this is a first step and, we'll see. Okay. Let's see how we did this week. I thought we did good.
Okay.
We sold 41 items, so things were selling.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of stuff to pack.
Like boom, boom, boom. We only made $951.
That's one of our worst weeks.
After shipping. So we like to make $1,000.
It's so low.
We didn't quite make it, and it's because our average price sold was like $23.
It was just painful.
There really is not much to talk about what we sold. It was
like
just
low dollar clothing.
There was nothing over $100. For us, our weeks are great when we have things that are selling for over 100
items. Yeah.
But this is it was like a lot of low dollar items. So we sold a lot. That always feels good,
Yeah, move that inventory.
Sold a lot of old things, so that's always feels good too.
Things where you're like, oh my God, I've looked at this in this bin for years and finally someone wanted it.
It made us some money.
This little cat bag, this crinkly cat bag. I'm like, I'm never going to sell that. Sold for $15.
It's like a cat toy. Yeah.
It's just like, oh my, I think we bought it for our cats and they didn't like it.
Right.
Someone wanted it.
And, it was fun. At one of our rentals, one of the kids that stayed broke a small TV we had, and they paid for it. And so we bought a new one, and instead of just dumping the old one or recycling it, I started parting it out. And we actually sold part of it.
It was almost like I couldn't help myself.
Right.
Because she shattered the LED screen, but the rest of it, the legs, the remote, I pulled the back off and pulled off there was a couple of circuit boards and a bunch of the screws. Like people buy the screws.
Right.
And so I'm like, I have the model number. I can look up the actual part numbers online. Like it's so easy. And I already sold some of it. So I'm like, that's great.
Yep.
That's so helpful.
And, and so someone bought the legs.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most obvious thing someone would buy.
Because the reason you're like, why would somebody buy the legs? Well, someone might have bought it on Craigslist and someone had mounted it on the wall and they don't have the legs.
Right.
Or someone your mom gave it to you and they don't have the legs and you're like, oh, I need this for a table. I've had that happen.
Yeah.
So. Oh, the speakers. I took the speakers out.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They were everything's held together by screws. You're like, just unscrew it,
zip, zip, zip,
take it off, put it in a anti-static bag.
It's going to be interesting to see if what sells because it's, it's a $150 TV, because it's small. It's a 32
inch. Yeah.
And I always find there's a price point where people are willing to fix it.
Right.
And then there's a price point where people just dump it. So
and buy a new one.
Interesting to see how many people are willing to fix it.
I've had that with other items where I've parted out like a $300, $400, $500 item, a coffee machine. And then I've gotten a cheaper coffee machine.
A $99.
Yeah, like $100 coffee machine. I'm like, people just buy a new one. Yeah. They don't part this out.
People don't part that out.
I think I made my money back though on those parts, but then stuff's just sitting there. So,
so
it's a good lesson though. You're like, you got to part out the expensive stuff.
Right.
Not the cheapo, unfortunately.
A fridge that costs $900, people will
want those parts.
Fix that up.
But like a $200 fridge, not so much.
Right.
They just want that $200 fridge for $50.
Scavenger of the week. We did a little bit of scavenging, not a whole lot.
I don't remember that.
We got little bits and bobs.
I blanked it out. Like, did we? Oh, we did. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I got some stuff.
Just to some local thrift stores.
Yeah.
Like some
just
little
random.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, bits and bobs.
Yeah, I think we're really trying to avoid buying stuff that's only going to sell for $10. So when that happens, we just don't scavenge as much because you're not going in there getting bags and bags of stuff.
Well, we would get clothes. I mean, the other thing too is that I was afraid of not having stuff for my helper. And I just have to be like, I don't have as much stuff this week. You know, it's just, it's a flexible job.
Yeah. I mean, it's something we're fighting is that we're trying to not scavenge low dollar items and trying to sell off all the low items in our store. So we're trying to rebalance our store inventory. But what that means is we're just in this weird point where we're not scavenging as much, not putting as much in our store. And then, you know, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't mind having a large inventory. I think we're just trying to go for the higher dollar items.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It is. It's tough.
Customer issues. We had none. I will say someone also mentioned about our podcast a week ago where we were talking about our like strategies or whatever. Yeah. Where we talked about the silent method. And the guy was like, and it's fair. He's like, he heard what we were talking about and he says, that sounds rude, you know? Right. He says like, if a buyer comes to you and is unhappy, you have to have customer service. Right. As like a responsible seller on eBay.
I do want to clarify though.
And that's true. Clarify.
So my clarification for that is the silent method is not ignoring customers. The silent method is a customer wants something. They want a return. They want a refund, whatever their problem is. You respond with the options. You can return it, or we can claim insurance or whatever. Here are the options I'm offering you. If they're not happy with those options or they send a block of text about why they want to keep the item and you have to refund them, we go silent. Right. We never ignore people. We're never like, I'm not going to answer this person. It's like a half silent method, you know? It's
I mean, I think that's well explained. I mean, here's a good example. Someone gets their item that they bought from us and they're like, I just got my item. I'm very unhappy. My daughter just got sick and she's in the hospital. I can't drive to the post office because my car is broken.
And I don't have a printer.
You said this was blue, but it's really a blue-green. I'm very unhappy. I think you're stealing from me. Yes. And my daughter's sick. And so our answer is this. We're sorry that this is happening to you. Please return the item for a refund. Silence.
No back and forth.
That's what it's about. And then she'll write back and be like, but my daughter's sick and my car is broken.
And I don't have a printer.
Like, why are you doing this to me? And it's just like everything else beyond that is drama. We've given her a clear choice. Yeah. And that's really it. And, that's what we mean by the silent, method is that we don't need to buy into all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's like I can't solve any of those. What I can solve for you is you returning the item and me giving you a refund. It
really is just a binary choice.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to convince her to keep it. I'm not trying to defend ourselves. I'm not trying to solve her other problems in her life or his life, I'm just saying, if you don't like the item, send it back. And if you don't send it back, then there's nothing I can do about it. And eBay respects that because
that's all they want you to do is say, send it back. I'll accept your return. You open a return. I accept it. Look, I'm even paying for the shipping back at this point. So you're like, what more can I do?
So that's just what we mean. And the reason why we came up with this is because we, like other people, I mean, me especially, because I kind of handle the customers. Yeah. In the early days, I would try to convince people to keep it. Like, well, I know you think it's blue-green, but really, let's really try it on again. See if you really
but we knew there's so much drama and you're like, okay, cool. You don't like it? Return it. Yeah. And they're like, but I want to keep it. Yeah. No, nope.
So things we learned in the forum. So there was a YouTube commenter that he gave a good kind of explanation of why pirate ship is good. Something I didn't understand. So he says, pirate ship is actually good for small, heavy items.
Okay.
I was thinking it was good for like large item. He says it's good for small, heavy items because it's based on the cubic space.
Okay.
Instead of by the weight. And that's why like small, heavy items are good because you could stick a heavy item in a small box and you only get charged by the size, not by the weight. And he says that's where. So
confusing.
And a Retro Treasures WV was saying that he just tried it and he loves it and he's like saving all this money. Other people were like, I tried it, I'm not. I think because he's selling shoes. So like if you're selling heavy shoes.
Heavy, like 3-4 pound.
You probably save money. So that is, interesting. I guess if you have the kind of inventory where you're selling like pieces of wood or I don't know what would be small and heavy. But
right.
I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting. I need to sign up and I will check it out. Training someone to ship is tough doing that, but I think eventually I will try it. It's tough because you're like, do I use eBay for some stuff and then I like check the price on Pirate Ship in another tab? Like, am I doing that for
FedEx,
everything?
Yeah.
So I can try that. I do that. I'm like, check all the prices. What's the cheapest?
I think we're also, and I've said this before, I think we're slow to change.
Yes.
And good or bad, I don't know, but it's because we have a system and we like stability. And we like to hear more information. We like to hear people's stories. And then we'll try it. And if it works, it then becomes part of our process and it becomes a thing. Yeah. So keep telling us what you think about Pirate Ship. It's interesting and we'll, I'm sure try it.
I will try it.
Okay. Let's go to the comments or questions that people sent in.
Hi, Jay and Ryan. Long-time listener. I've been selling on eBay for about 7 years. Off and on. I've been full-time for the past 3 years. And I'm just starting to have a lot of anxiety surrounding how do I structure my day. Sometimes I go back and forth between, I should source in the morning and then list in the evening. So I guess I would be curious to know how you guys structure your day. Like, particularly Ryan, like, do you get up and do your shipping and then, work on your rentals? Like, or is it just a kind of a go with the flow kind of thing? I'm just looking for any way to like reduce my anxiety and stress of every day of feeling like, I need to be doing something. They're doing this, they're doing that, and not getting things done. So I guess anything you guys would have to add to that. Love the podcast. Thank you so much.
That's a great question. Yeah, things change. And like today, I don't have to get up and ship because someone's going to help me. But I did used to do that.
Why don't we think about when we were just doing eBay?
Okay.
Because our lives are different now where we have like kind of multiple things we're doing.
Yeah.
And eBay is not always the first thing on the list. But let's think about back when we
just did eBay.
We did our house here. We just moved into our house and we were surrounded by stuff.
Yeah. So I would get up and ship because our post office person comes between 11 and 12-ish. So that gives me, a couple hours to do that in the morning. And then because we like to photograph with natural light, you or I or both of us, depending on what was going on, would take photos during the day. Or we would be listing. If we had like a cache of photos, I would be listing, you would be photographing.
Right.
If you have a partner. And sourcing, we would source just, when we weren't doing that. It was like, there's a sale at this place on Wednesdays. Okay, great. Let's go there. Or we have to go over to this other town to go to Lowe's. Okay, let's go sourcing over there. You just break it up so you don't get bored. That's what it comes down to.
For me, like back when we were doing this, only doing eBay, I would be taking the photos and it would just be like, just do a number. I would be like, I'm going to get through this box.
15 things. Right.
Today.
Right.
15 things, 20 things out. Right. And I would lay them out on the carpet or on the a rug. I would lay out all these things. Remember, it was right there. Yeah. I would have all these things laid out and I'd be like, I'm just going to take pictures and I'm going to write the titles and I'm going to get that done today. That didn't mean, I get it. There's always a little bit amount of stress because, especially like if you're like, I don't want to do this, but I would do it because it's my job, but I would be able to like take breaks when I wanted to. I could make lunch. We would eat lunch together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but the important thing was I would get done a certain amount every day.
Right.
And that was important.
And I think, like you're saying, it's important to have a limit, because if you have death piles, which we did, we had rooms and rooms of death piles. It was just like
of piles of things in your house that you ignore, and they just
you don't want to do it.
Part of the background of your life.
We would have piles of like military surplus in this room, this like sunroom that we have, and we would just be like, "What are we gonna do?" Because it gets overwhelming.
Right.
But if you're like, how about I just do 10 of those today?
Yeah.
I'll just do 10 and then I'll go source.
Yeah.
So what helps me now, and Jay has done this forever since I met him. He used to have lists written on his hand, in pen. Is you remember that?
Yeah.
And little notebooks he would keep in his pocket of infinite lists.
It's before the iPhone.
Yeah. So now it's on his phone. And he shares them with me occasionally, is Google Calendar and to-do lists.
Yeah.
So if you want to go sourcing a couple days a week, put it on the calendar.
Right.
I want to go sourcing 2 days this week. Put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Make a list for yourself. Look, I have a to-do list literally scrawled in Sharpie next to me on a scrap piece of paper.
Yep.
Stuff I have to get done today. So you're like, here's stuff I have to get done today. Here's stuff I have to get done in the week. Like,
so I'm going to do a counter to that. So the reason why I have always made a list.
yes.
Infinite list is because I need to get out of my head.
Yes.
Because if not, I'm like obsessing about it or I'm feeling bad about it. If I get it on a piece of paper, I don't have to think about it anymore. And then when I have time or I feel like I want to do something, then I go to it. Like that's the thing. It's not about being like a slave to a list. It's just like a list is like all the things.
Right.
And then and then part of it is just, this is where I tell people, some of it is just like, if things are really and I'm not talking about the person who called, but just, I can sometimes hear in people, it's like, maybe you need to go to a therapist. Like if things are just getting too crazy for you, sometimes you have to, and it's not a bad thing. Like just get help with it's your life, your stress, all that stuff.
Right.
Talk to a third party, it's like, it's all good. eBay is just a thing. It's just a way to make some money. If you're going to work 8 hours for someone else at an hourly wage to make a living, put 8 hours in for you.
Yeah.
And it's a business, and just do it,
And I think that, in terms of like, cause I'm still learning this. I have such a hard time when I don't have to-do lists and I'm like, I have all this stuff to do and it just all has to get done right now and it has to get done today. It's like, Jay always reminds me, and that's with eBay or any business or any project that you want to do. You're like, what does have to get done today?
Right. What absolutely has to.
Like what has to be done by the time you're asleep?
Right.
Okay. Write those down.
Right.
And look, you can argue for eBay, nothing really does have to happen, but if you want to make money, it does. So you can just break it up. Hey, I need to list these 10 things because they're sitting in my space and I want them out of my space. Right. Done.
And honestly, for me, I've always seen sourcing or scavenging as like the fun part.
Right.
And it's like
the fun break.
It's like a joy. And that's where we're like, well, let's just not do this work.
Yeah.
And let's go scavenging.
Right.
And scavenging is work because that's where
your
money comes from. But that's the fun part.
But it's
and
like treasure hunting.
Plan a day.
Yeah.
And, we'll do that. And I think that's the danger though, is that some people are like, I just want to do that. And I'm just sourcing every day and I'm doing my job. And then that's when
and
you
they're
have
hoarders.
Piles in your house and they're death piles. And then you're a hoarder and then you're on another TV show
it's
that
a different
you probably
TV
don't want
show.
to be on.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Okay.
Anyway.
I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Tom from Grand Blanc, Michigan, real close to Flint, and just getting started with an eBay business here. And I have a question regarding shipping. I had an item that I took the time to weigh out and package and weigh out and price out and everything ahead of time before before posting it. And when it sold, I got this notice that the buyer was requesting some other shipment, which took me off guard. I think I put it in with USPS, and the buyer wanted it shipped via UPS. And it kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't even realize you could do that kind of thing. I had to kind of shift gears. And anyways, I wasn't aware you could do that kind of thing. If you could, have you run into that before, and how did you handle it? Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's rare to run into something like that the only time I think I've ever run into that where someone said, send it this way instead of this way, was they were a prop house and they were sending their own label, which also can be a problem because, we have a UPS pickup in our town, but I don't think it's express. It's not like overnight or whatever. So honestly, a lot of times I'll write back and be like, for us, it's kind of an easy excuse where I'm like, I live in a rural area. This is what's available to me. And, I'll ship this out as, ASAP, tomorrow morning or today, depending on what time it is. That's my best answer is I'm like, this is, you can see on the listing. If they message you ahead of time before they buy it, you can have a conversation with them. Are you sending me a label? Can you have UPS pick this up from the house? Blah, blah, blah. But I don't use UPS. I use either FedEx because they will come to my house or USPS. And I just tell people that this is what's available in my area. The nearest UPS drop off is, X amount of hours away.
Yeah. I think we just give people the boundaries,
Right.
This is what can happen. And then they make a choice from there. There's a guy who he lives couple hours away from us, and he says, I need this piece of music equipment from you.
Oh, yeah.
Monday at this time, can you get it to me? And we're just like, basically, no. I mean, we can get it to you by X time. And he's like, that's my show will already be done. And
I'm like, that's not my problem.
That's just,
yeah, exactly. So look, if it's a really, really, really high dollar item, yes, definitely try to work something out with someone. This is a less than $20 item. This guy's like, basically, I need to pick this up right now.
There have been times when someone wants to, buy something for $200, $300, $400. And I remember I drove to the next town over half an hour away and mailed it from
I think it was, they gave us a UPS label.
And so I'm like, I'll spend an hour of my time.
Yeah.
I'll go get a good coffee, and that's great.
And I'll go scavenging. Yeah. Just like we were talking about, right?
All good. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have the time.
$20, not a.
But also a lot of this is a similar situation. Someone wanted to buy this big porcelain sign from us. He did end up buying it and I shipped it. But he wanted to come look at it beforehand. He's like, I live an hour and a half away. I want to come look at this.
Right.
And we were just like, no.
Yep.
You either buy it and I ship it and you don't like it. And that's a different problem, but my photos show what it is.
Right. And then we told him no. And then about a month went by. He says, can I come and see it? We said no. And then he just bought it outright. And
he lived within my postal zone.
Right.
So I shipped it and he got it the next day. Right. You're like, it's cool, dude. Yeah. It's fine. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Good morning, Scavenger. I've been listening to you for about 4 years. My questions this morning are, I recently had to leave. I was working 4 jobs, had an aha moment to use eBay as primary and keep one job, basically on doctor's orders. And I am slowly, increasing inventory, but wondering, since I still am working part-time, which often turns into full-time, how many listings I should try to go for right now. I'm aiming for the 500, trying not to look like a hoarder. I've gone to several estate auctions and I sell anything. I mean, basically, my store is got a little bit of everything in there, but just trying to determine what to do with. We won 3 closets full of items at an estate sale auction online. And I know they added to those closets because we ended up having 3 carloads, which I know we didn't have 3 carloads when we previewed. But, and it's all new with tags, men's clothes, large size. So, what is the best way to deal with a huge abundance of inventory when, like you said, your cost of goods is nilch. It's less than 5 cents an item. I'd love to just, hear a discussion on, how to get through this mass amount of inventory when you're still having to work and keep your house not looking like a hoarder's house. I love you all. So glad I get to be home again to listen to you. I'm doing a mass listening today and just truly enjoying myself. Thank you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Thanks. I mean, welcome to America where, people are working 4 jobs to get by. It's like, my God. And I love the idea of someone just having that aha moment. Like I said, if you're going to spend 4 jobs and all your hours are working to make someone else some money, work for yourself because you're obviously smart and you're organized and you can do it, And she did it better than I think I ever have in any podcast. I mean, she just gave the example of how, especially in the United States, there is so much stuff, such an abundance of stuff.
Like she bought stuff and the auction house was like, let's just unload it on her for free.
Right. Closets full of like brand new items that some guy or some person bought and never used, died, and then now. Or
it was a closeout at a store or whatever. So here's my advice. Here's the first thing that popped into my head. New with tags items, men's large sizes. You could sell those in lots. You could be like, here's a lot of 4 shirts, same brand, whatever. I don't know what you have. And that could get rid of stuff faster for you.
If it's not like super fancy items.
Right.
Sell 4 shirts for $60 instead of each shirt for $10 or something.
And then that'll move stuff faster.
I love the math. But I mean, this I think goes back to the other caller about like, how do you schedule your day and how do you not look like a hoarder? And really the answer is it's just, you got to get to work.
You got to work. You got to dig in.
And that, I know in the early days, I used to struggle with that because we'd go scavenging. We'd come back and be like, I can't believe what we just found. This is amazing. There's got to be more stuff. We got to go get it.
We got to buy it
now.
It's going to go away.
Like a beautiful $200 jacket that's being put on the thing. I got to go get it or someone else will. I thank God I've kind of gotten rid of those obsessive thoughts. And I'm like, you know what? There'll be more stuff.
There's more stuff.
Every time we go, there's always stuff.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
Right. But like you said, you just have to dig in and do, So try to list things in ways that make sense that will still make money. I mean, if you bought that stuff for less than 5 cents each, which it sounds like you did, move it.
I mean, we've just said, look, black or white here, 20 things a day. Yeah. It does not matter what doesn't matter anything else. It doesn't matter how big your piles are, anything. Do 20
You'll
things
get
a day. A single person can photograph and list 20 things a day if you do an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
That's very casual where you're taking a lunch for yourself, having coffee.
Not killing yourself.
Playing the radio, playing podcasts. 20 things is like a doable thing. And if you do that every single day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, 5 days a week even, you're doing 100 a week, 400 a month. I mean, it's just.
That's a lot.
That's how it works.
Yep.
And then if your life is being bombarded by too much stuff, then just stop buying stuff.
Yeah, stop buying stuff. Get through that stuff.
Yeah.
And then decide when you want to buy. We went to an auction a couple of weeks ago and we had so many boxes. I was like, there's the endless boxes. We have like 2 left.
Right.
Because you get through it. I mean, granted, I pay someone to do it, but I thought, this is going to be months of work for her. No, it was less than a month actually, which is great. I'm like, cool. I love that, So it's not as much as you think it is. I don't think.
Yeah. It's abundance of riches in this country.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it for the podcast.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. I'm glad we could hang out for a bit while you do some work. I hope you're doing some work.
You better be working.
You're doing your 20 items. We talk about this forum that's at scavengerlife.com, and that's where you can see some links we talked about, and you can join the conversation. If you want to join, because we're very anti-spam, we don't like spammers that get into our forum. We must personally approve you. So you join up, you email us,
And then I approve you.
Then we approve you.
Now, I might have already denied you, but that's okay, because I'll just unclick that box, and you're good to go.
Just send us an email, and that
very
way
helpful.
We're a no spam zone. That's my potatoes.
Jay's potatoes are done. Perfect timing.
All right. You can call and leave a question or comment on our voicemail line.
The phone number is 540-407-8486, or you can email us an audio file from your phone. The email is thescavengerlife@gmail.com.
We do an episode every Sunday night, Monday-ish. Do you think we'll do this like when we're 60 years old?
No, we better not be.
No, wouldn't that be cool to have
just like years and years?
Like, I don't know.
They're like, they talk about the same thing every week for the last 60 years. No, how many years?
And it could be like an art project where like, just the podcast just plays for like 20 years straight.
Like someone's like, I've been listening to you for 20 years. We have another podcast. If you're wanting to hear more, I have a podcast with my sister called shampooandbooze.com where we're recording today.
I'm not on it, so that may be a good or bad thing for you. I don't know.
You know what's funny about Shampoo and Booze?
Enough already.
Ryan gets to talk a lot. Like, I look at the waveform when I'm like editing and I'm like, wow, Ryan talks a lot more than on Scavenger Life. That's not true. Okay. So shampooandbooze.com. If you're interested in short-term rentals and Airbnbs, we talk about design and operations and we love it. It's fun.
Yep.
Okay. This podcast is ending.
In 3,
2, 1. Sell trash. Be free.
That's right.